In this video, we want to talk about the contribution of Douglas McGregor to our understanding of management theory and look at his contribution to management theory. In particular, we want to look at Theory X and Theory Y. Now, in his book, The Human Side of Enterprise, which McGregor published in 1960, it examined theories of behavior of individuals at work. He formulated two models, which he called Theory X and Theory Y. There's not a lot in the names, Theory X and Theory Y, to suggest what they're about. However, when we read over it, we see there is quite a stark difference in the two approaches. But the names X and Y do not give an obvious indication as to what the theories are about. So let's look at Theory X and look at the assumptions of Theory X. Well, to start, it assumes, or it sees, that the average human being has an inherent dislike of work and will avoid work if he or she can. So it starts from the assumption that people don't like to work, and we will avoid work if we can at all, if it's possible. Because of their dislike of work, people must be controlled and threatened before they will work hard enough. So it looks very, very ominous right from the start. People don't like to work, and the only way to get them to work is to control them and even threaten them with perhaps redundancy or lack of promotion or even reduction in wages or in salaries. So the way to get people to work according to this Theory X is by going about it very roughly, by threatening and by controlling and monitoring and watching, and it's very much interventionist and very much mistrusting of the employees, because it assumes the employees don't want to work. It assumes that the average human prefers to be directed, that he or she dislikes responsibility, is ambiguous, vague about what their responsibilities are or what their roles are, and desires security above everything. So this view of the employees is very negative. It sees the employees as wanting to have secure work because they want to have an income at the end of the week or at the end of the month. But the employees do not want to have responsibility. They don't want to have to think about the job. They want to go in for a certain number of hours every day, perform some functions and go home. And that's the end of the commitment. So they don't want responsibility. They want to be directed. They want people to tell them exactly what to do. They don't want to have to think about what to do. They don't show initiative, or they don't want to be involved in that sense. They want to be directed, instructed what to do, perform the task and go home, and not to have to think about work. But they want to keep their job. They want to remain employed because they want the income. These assumptions lie behind most organizational principles today and give rise to tough management with punishments and tight controls, and also soft management which aims at harmony at work. So when we have a situation as described by Theory X of employees not wanting to work if they can, but realizing they have to work because they want an income, but they don't want to be involved, they want to be directed and controlled, and they don't want to think about what they're doing. They don't want to be engaged in that sense. So this gives rise to management have a clear role. Management needs to instruct the employees what to do. They need to guide them, make sure it's done, make sure the quality is right. So the whole onus of the quality side of production and meeting the schedules rests with management. So management has to be tough. It has to give strict orders. And if the orders are not carried out, there should be punishments. This is what the theory suggests. Punishments in the form of perhaps reduction in salaries, or removal of bonuses, or some sort of punishments, so that the workers have an incentive to carry out the instructions of management. So there are quite tight controls by management. But of course the management's only doing this because they have no choice. So they have to keep the organization running. So they come across as quite soft in that sense. They have to give in. The employees don't want to be involved, so it has to be management who ensure that the whole work process and all the schedules and everything is done that's required to be done. So in that sense, the burden of the whole organization falls on management directly. These assumptions may be challenged, since employees seem to need more than financial rewards at work. So although we've got the assumptions of Theory X, it is debatable. Sometimes workers want more. The employee may need some deeper and higher order motivation, perhaps the opportunity to fulfill him or herself. However, Theory X managers do not give their staff this opportunity so that employees behave in the expected fashion. So maybe Theory X arises because management assume that the workers don't want to work, and assume the workers don't want to have responsibility, and therefore don't give the employees, don't give the workers the opportunity to show initiative. And therefore, of course, the behavior that the management assumed is what they will expect and see, because they're not giving the employees the opportunity to show the initiative. But it may be the case that employees want to be involved, but they're just simply never given the opportunity. And that moves us on to Theory Y, and looking at the assumptions of Theory Y. The expenditure of physical and mental effort in work is as natural as play or rest. Now this one is diametrically opposed to Theory X. Theory Y is the opposite. Theory Y is suggesting that people like to work. They like to work because, in the same way as they like to play or to rest, that it's somehow natural for humans to want to work. And therefore, the employees are engaged, they are interested, they are motivated. Control and punishment are not the only ways to make people work. Man will direct himself if he or she is committed to the aims of the organization. So instead of having very interventionist type management and mistrusting management, as Theory X suggested, this one's suggesting that if the employees are properly trained and given the latitude to work and show initiative, they can be trusted. They will perform functions that will help the organization achieve its objectives. So this theory is quite the opposite of Theory X. If a job is satisfying, then the result will be commitment to the organization. If the employees like what they're doing, if they find the work interesting, they find it challenging and they have to think about it and they're interested, and also management rewards them for their achievements, congratulates them perhaps, then they're going to have commitment to the organization. They're going to have commitment to the task. They're interested. The average man or woman learns, under proper condition, not only to accept but also to seek responsibility. Uh, when people work in a particular task and have built up an expertise in the task and have learnt by doing, and they're interested, it's almost natural for them to seek responsibility, to say to management to leave this to them, they can do this, and management is freed up to do something else. They can be trusted. Imagination, creativity and ingenuity can be used to solve work problems by a large number of employees. So in a forward-looking organisation, one that's committed to learning and to involvement, the employees can turn into a real resource of creative talent, of imagination, ideas for innovation for the product, new ways of production, new ways of working. The employees can become an additional resource, not just people performing the tasks, but people with ideas about how the tasks should be performed. So they are subscribing and putting forward ideas to management about how improvements can be made, because they're involved, because they're interested. Under the conditions of modern industrial life, the intellectual potentialities of the average man are only partially utilized. So there is a tension in modern day working, because there is a greater introduction of robotics and of very advanced technology in production and in office systems and so on. So the ways in which employees can make a contribution, an innovative contribution, are in a sense diminishing. The ways are becoming very difficult to find. So sometimes modern industrial working practices can militate against the involvement and the initiatives that employees can show within the organisation. So it could be that modern working practices militate against the theory Y. But as we can see here from this list, theory Y and theory X are radically different. These assumptions are based on social science research and demonstrate the potential which is present in man and which organizations should recognize in order to become more effective. McGregor sees these two theories as two quite separate attitudes. They are in a sense quite extreme. They're the polar extremes in terms of business management. One, not trusting, watching, believing that the workers are only there to get a salary and get out, not interested. And theory Y, an engaged workforce who are interested and who enjoy working and who want to be involved. So there are quite extreme positions and diametrically opposed. Theory Y is difficult to put into practice on the shop floor in large mass production operations, but it can be used initially in the managing of managers and professionals. In large production processes, it may be that there is line production and that the employees are working with the machinery and they're working at the pace of the machinery and they're performing functions that perhaps the machinery could not do, because the human body is very flexible. It's much better than most robots. It's got flexibility, it's able to move. Sometimes employees are there for that reason. It may not sound very attractive, but that is the case. So sometimes it's difficult to to deal with these employees and get them motivated and get them interested and involved and enthusiastic, because they are doing a repetitive task perhaps on the production line. They're doing the same task over and over and over. And in a sense, they're tendering to the machines. They're looking after the machines, making sure the machines are doing their function. So it's very difficult to make these employees enthusiastic and involved, and so it doesn't really apply, Theory Y, to that type of employee. But it does apply to, say, managers, line managers, middle management, and so on. And it applies to professionals. So getting those involved and getting those enthusiastic, well, Theory Y is suitable. It's a suitable base from which to start. In the human side of enterprise, McGregor shows how Theory Y affects the management of promotions and salaries and the development of effective managers. So Theory Y is suitable to having incentives to get people involved. Promotions, for example, or bonus payments, or extra fringe benefits. He also sees Theory Y as conducive to participative problem solving, where the workers participate in the whole activities of the business. When problems arise, the employees have ideas as well, which should be taken into account, because they may look at it from a different angle and they may have the solution, whereas management may find it very difficult. But Theory Y, because the employees are interested and enthusiastic, they want to bring forward solutions to problems and make recommendations. It's part of the manager's job to exercise authority, and there are cases in which this is the only method of achieving the desired results, because subordinates do not agree that the ends are desirable. So even though the employees are engaged and interested, it doesn't mean that they are completely subscribing to the objectives of the organization. They may not know the strategic plan of the organization, and if they did know it, they may not agree with it. They may think the organization needs to move in a different direction. So even though they are enthusiastic and interested, paradoxically, they may not be interested in moving the organization in the way that management wants. So sometimes, even with Theory Y, management have to direct and make sure that the employees are pulling in the direction that the management want. Now, sometimes the employees don't have all the information. They don't understand perhaps the conditions in the market, or the effects of globalization, or the effects of technology on product design, and so on and so on. So they may only have partial perspectives, and if they just focus in on those limited perspectives, it may be that their recommendations for the organization are misplaced, and therefore, of course, management will have to intervene to make sure that the organization achieves its overall objectives, its macro objectives, the strategic plan. The situation in which employees can be consulted is one where the individuals are emotionally mature and positively motivated towards their work. Again, the wholesale introduction of Theory Y type thinking, whilst it sounds attractive, it depends critically on the employees, whether the employees are sufficiently interested, sufficiently mature to understand and perhaps work towards the same objectives that the management want. The employees may be engaged and want to work and are happy to be there and are enthusiastic, but they may not fully understand what is the direction of the business, what does the business want to do, and what are the pressures the business is under, say the competitive pressure it's under. So the business does not have the luxury of doing perhaps what the employees are recommending, and that could cause frustration and even alienation. They think management's ignoring them. They've made a suggestion, management haven't adopted it, therefore management don't care. Which is not true, but it depends on, as the statement says here, on the emotional maturity of the employees, whether they understand the various constraints and they understand the nature of the work and the market in which the business is operating. Where the work is sufficiently responsible to allow for flexibility, and where the employee can see his or her own position in the management hierarchy. Now, where this happens, this is where it's possible for the employees to be engaged. They understand their position. They understand the role of management. They understand the hierarchy of the organisation. They have some appreciation perhaps of the constraints that the business work under in terms of the competitive pressures, the cheap imports perhaps because of globalization, the onset of rapid technological change, changes in the market, changes in customers' expectations and so on. So if they have a good understanding of this, then they may be able to make a contribution, even though their specific tasks may be quite small, but it doesn't stop them from bringing forward ideas to the line manager, to other managers, through suggestion boxes or through face-to-face contact, simply suggesting the business could move this way or make a certain change here, or why not do it this way. So they're bringing out ideas, and they are still engaged. If the conditions are present, managers will find that the participative approach to problem solving leads to much improved results compared with the alternative approach of handing out authoritarian orders. It's far better if the workforce do participate. There's a better result. There's better quality work, there's more productivity, there's more application, less absenteeism from work, less turnover of staff, less training required. It's much more productive than if the employees are, say, theory X, they're disengaged, they're not interested, then the management have to be quite strict and deal with the employees in quite an authoritarian way, order them what to do and give them precise instructions and deadlines. In that case, productivity and production and quality, all of these issues, in a sense, fall to the management. It's the management who are responsible to make sure that the employees are doing exactly as told. Once management becomes persuaded that it is underestimating the potential of its human resources and accepts the knowledge given by social science researchers and displayed in Theory Y assumptions, then it can invest time, money and effort in developing improved application of the theory. So improved applications or application of the theory means that once all the prerequisites are met, once the management are persuaded that the employees are cognitive, interested, engaged, want to be there, like work, once they accept that that's the environment in which the business operates, then they can invest time and training in developing the employees to an even higher level so that they become even more engaged. And this could be a real resource for management to consult widely within the employee group for ideas, run suggestions past them, get criticisms from them, and these should be taken on board. It's not a random sample of what's happening in the wider society where perhaps the product is sold, but it could be a quick snapshot of some issues that may be confronted. For example, when developing a product, instead of doing extensive market research at the early stages, at the very early stage when it's just a concept, go to the employees who are engaged and interested and who will give accurate and honest feedback. And that could be just the first port of call for a new idea or a new product. McGregor realized that some of the theories he put forward are unrealizable in practice, but he wanted managers to put into operation the basic assumption that staff will contribute more to the organization if they are treated with responsible and if they are treated as responsible and valued employees. So organizations will benefit if the organizations treat the employees as responsible and valued. The employees will reciprocate. Of course, it all means that the prerequisites we talked about earlier, having cognitive staff who want to be involved and so on, that these are present. Okay, so motivation in the workplace. The job of a manager in the workplace is to get things done through the efforts of the employees. To do this, the manager should be able to motivate employees. And of course, that's easier said than done. Motivation, practice and theory are difficult subjects, touching on several disciplines. The management themselves would have to be trained in techniques of how to motivate others. So the management have to be motivated, and then the management have to motivate others. So there's a cascading requirement for motivation all the way through the organization, from the very top, from the CEO at the top, all the way down to the last employee in. So there has to be motivation, and has to be an understanding of the types of motivation that's going to work. But also the prerequisites, as I said in the earlier slides, the prerequisites for motivation have to be there. In other words, the employees must want it. It must be essentially a theory Y organization. A theory Y organization, one in which the employees are interested. They want to be involved. They want to promote themselves, and they want to have their ideas listened to, and their ideas may be rejected, but at least the management are listening and taking them seriously. So with that type of environment, motivation will be quite high. High motivation has lots of benefits, as I've said several times earlier. Low absenteeism, more engagement, higher productivity, even greater health and safety at work, better working practices, better quality of output. Performance is considered to be a function of ability and motivation. And there are theories in management theories that suggest this, and these are the subject matter of other videos. But essentially, performance may be seen as the product of ability and motivation. When the employees have the ability to do a job, and then on top of having the ability, apply themselves constructively and properly to do the job. That's performance. That's good performance. Ability, in turn, depends on education, experience and training, and its improvement is a slow and long process. So ability is, well, it's education, it's the experience and training that the employees have had. It's also something innate within them. it's a bit like in psychology the nature-nurture debate. The nature of the person, they must have a temperament to enable them to perform the tasks that are asked of them. They must have that predisposition to be able to do the tasks. On top of that, they should have appropriate education, appropriate experience, perhaps have attended training courses and so on. And this is what gives them the ability. So it's the ability and motivation that gives performance, and ability in turn depends on these factors. On the other hand, motivation can be improved quickly. There are many options, and an uninitiated manager may not even know where to start. So motivation is something that can be put in place quickly. Say the introduction of a bonus system, or the introduction of flexible working to the benefit of the employees, the introduction of promotion schemes. So motivation can be put in place quite quickly. It's whether the employees are able and willing to take on board those opportunities. So on this slide we've seen some very important points. We've seen performance, which is the function of ability and motivation. Ability is perhaps something long run that's developed. Education, experience, training. But motivation, that can be done very quickly. That can be changed quite quickly. But of course managers will have to know what motivations may be put in place that are most suitable for the particular set of employees, because people are different also. As a guideline, there are broadly 7 categories for motivation, and I'm not going to go through these in this video. These are the subject matter for other videos, and also for your own reading and research. It's important that you understand the importance of these and make your own notes, but they are dealt with in other videos. But the 7 areas are positive reinforcement, that's reinforcement theory, where good practice is rewarded. Effective discipline and punishment. The employees and the management should know their boundaries, should know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, because sometimes they may go too far in terms of seeking out productivity or extra production, and which may be hazardous to the employee. It may infringe on health and safety, for example, or it may be asking too much of the employees because they haven't been effectively trained. So having discipline and punishment is perhaps there's an issue. Perhaps it needs to be looked at openly and fairly, because there may be 2 sides to the argument. Perhaps the management are asking tasks of the employees that are simply not fair. And that takes us on to number 3. The people should be treated fairly. The management should understand the capacities of the employees, their abilities, and look at the amount of effort and work that's been required of them in a particular working day, for example, and make sure it's fair and they're being treated properly and fairly. They have proper breaks and they're working in a safe environment and they're being appropriately rewarded. Satisfying employee needs. Well, as far as possible, they should be satisfied. If they don't impinge upon health and safety and impinge upon the performance of others, and also enables the organisation to achieve its targets. So employees' needs should be taken into account. At least the management should know what the employee needs are and should have some sort of process ongoing process to try and ensure that the employee needs are met wherever possible. And setting work-related goals should be realistic as well. It's similar to point number 3, making sure that work-related goals are realistic, that the employees can achieve these. They can work confidently and safely towards meeting the goals because they've been set properly. Any restructuring of jobs on point 6 should be done fairly as well. Employees should not just be moved around. Although it's job enrichment in some ways, they're given new experiences and it's more interesting for them, but at the same time they should be adequately trained. That simply moving them around is not a solution. It can lead to frustration and an annoyance. It can upset the routine of the work. So they should be moved around once it has been properly planned and delivered and appropriate training and so on has been done. And base rewards on job performance. It's felt very unfair amongst employees that some employees may be rewarded because the management like them. They like certain employees and they don't like other employees. It's nothing to do with the performance of the job. It's almost based on prejudice. And care has to be taken within the organisation to ensure that the employees are treated fairly, one compared to the next. There is no obvious discrimination, for example, or treatment on the basis of factors other than job performance, perhaps payment on the basis of culture or identity or colour or religion, because these are irrelevant. It's the job performance that's important. So there's got to be an absence of discrimination, either overt or covert. It has got to be removed, and people should be rewarded for their job performance solely. That is fair. These are the basic strategies. Through the mix in the final recipe will vary, though the mix in the final recipe will vary from workplace situation to situation. But essentially, these are the strategies to motivate workers, these 6 points that were on the previous slide. There is a gap between the individual's actual state and some desired state, and the manager tries to reduce this gap. There may always be a gap. The employees may never be completely a good fit for the organisation. There may be a gap in performance or in consistency or whatever, and it's for the management to try to put remedial action or design remedial actions to bridge the gap, to reduce the gap between expected results and actual results, to ensure that the employees are working effectively and that the employees are being carried with the organisation. They're being carried along and they can empathise with the organisation. These are some of the sources that were used throughout, quite an extensive few. But that's all I'm going to deal with in this one. It's a very important class because it's often quoted. So McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y is quite famous in management theory, and you should really be au fait with it. That's all I'm going to deal with now, so let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.